We take our land sailor out, set it up, give it a try. At first we didn't have enough wind, then pretty soon the wind came up and we went like fury. We run out of drinking water, so we're going to Frog Springs to replenish our stock of drinking water.
Frog Springs is excellent cold mountain spring water coming straight out of the Steens Mountains, comes down here and goes into sort of a culvert with a pipe in it, and you can fill your jugs right out of the pipe. We go out on the road, and here's a Great Basin gopher snake out on the road taking a chance of getting run over. So we're going to try to convince him to get out of the road. He's trying to strike at Joe, but if he strikes him it won't matter because they don't have big enough fangs to do anything. And another thing, they're constrictors, so all they have is a few holding teeth and no venom, so it won't hurt that much. It might sting a little, but he finally gives up and goes up, and he's thinking about going in a hole, but then he looks it over and decides that isn't any place for a good snake like him. So he crawls on up into the brush. Well, we're heading back for camp, and we think maybe there's something on to eat. So we're going to hurry back there, and we've got some of the fish that we've caught earlier already cooked and ready to eat.
Calling the desert. We have our fish already cooked, and so we're going to have us a really fantastic dinner. After we have our dinner, the boys have brought a .22 with them and have gone up and shot a jackrabbit and 2 cottontails. With the cottontails they'll eat, and the jackrabbit we'll use for bait on our motion detector camera. A velvet ant is in high gear running across the desert floor to safety. They're real pretty, and it seemed to fascinate the boys. We go down to the hot springs, and it's time for those filthy boys to clean up a little bit. Marge doesn't put up with dirty boys out camping. After that, it's jump in the hot springs and test the water, and oh boy, is it nice, and does that ever feel good. After a quick dip in the hot springs, it's time to go up and check the old orchard. As we drive up on the orchard, we see there's a lot of apples on one of the trees. We'll go down to the orchard. This orchard is growing peaches and everything in an area where you really wouldn't expect them, but it's sort of a microclimate from the hot springs. The first tree we come past is a plum tree, and it's going to have a few plums, not a whole lot. Next, we come to a peach tree, and it looks as if it's going to have a crop of peaches. They won't be ripe, though, till mid-September, but boy, are they delicious. No water on them and no fertilizer. I guess that's as organic as you can get, the wild peaches. The apricot tree, at first we see no apricots. Then, after examining it a while, we find there's some apricots. The boys are picking some of the domestic sage that was planted here by the old mercury miners, Mike and Jim Weston. Also, they planted cherry trees, and these cherries are ripe right now, and those boys are going to sample them and see how they'll be. The boys walk around in this many-tree orchard, finding different fruit. There's some little plums that are just starting to get ripe. And then the pear trees. look as if they're loaded with pears, but they won't be ripe until about mid-September. There's several of them on the tree. Another pear tree is just absolutely loaded with pears. Boy, there's going to be some nice pears there. Peaches and pears are the two things that look good, and there's going to be a lot of apples. The boys even found some apples to eat. The little pears are gradually developing. Then we look at the apricot tree again, and Joe spotted some apricots, and they're ripe right now. So, oh boy, that is going to taste so good. Nice ripe apricots grown out in the wilds of southeast Oregon. Unfortunately, there wasn't a very big crop of apricots this year. They had mostly frosted out, but we found enough to have us a good feed. And Dustin climbed up in the tree, picked 'em and threw 'em down to Joe. When he could no longer reach 'em, we found him a little stick, which he knocked him off the tree and down into Joe's hat. The apricot down with a stick to Joe. Is it coming? And Joe's going to catch it. You get it?
Uh-huh.
He caught it.
Yeah, sure. That's a nice one I'm trying to get. Oops. Oops.
Caught another and then it bounced out of the hat, but
Yeah, I'm going to get one more.
That one?
This one right there. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Joe's getting his hat full of apricots.
Get it. Don't kick it.
We can only barely see the desert below us due to all that smoke from the forest fires in California. We take the land sailor down again and set it up, and we've got a decent wind, so we should be able to go pretty good. Dustin's on it and ready to go, and I'm doing a few things around, getting things picked up, and a gust of wind comes, and away he goes. I couldn't catch him, but pretty soon he got it stopped, and I walked over and got on, and we really had a nice ride. The wind fills our sails,
and we race across the desert at breakneck speed. It's really nice and smooth out here. The only noise you have is the whipping of the sail as the wind hits it, and the little steady roar of the cracks in the playa when the wheels touch them. This machine, like everything I own, is homemade, and so it works real well, and you guide it with your feet. That way you have both hands free to work the rigging. This playa is so big you can almost see the curvature of the earth on it. We have a tire going flat, so we head over toward our camp to get the pump and pump it up. The tire just kept getting flatter and flatter, and by the time we got fairly close to camp, it had gone completely flat. I was having such a great time out here. Suddenly I noticed things getting a little blurry. I checked my glasses and find I'd lost one of the lens out of my glasses. So we'll circle around and look for it for a little bit here, but it seems like our attempts were futile to find it. Then we have another situation starting to happen. One of our rear tires is getting lower and lower and lower pretty fast. So we chart a course straight for our camp to get the air pump. We get somewhere near our camp and the tire goes completely flat. Dustin's driving and he's having a great time doing it. It's real easy to catch on to how to work this thing, and you can tack it or do anything you could with a boat in the water, except you can go faster on land because you don't have the drag of water. As our tire gets flatter, we'll have to stop, and since we can see our camp, I'll just go ahead and walk over and get the air pump. I leave Dustin setting on the sailor. I look over there, and here he is on his side. I guess the wind blew it over.
Healing experience where I lost one of the lens out of my glasses. We go to Pike Creek to pick us a few choke cherries to eat. They're not quite ripe there, but they're getting there.
The old rock's still standing with a tree growing out of it here. I've lost one of the lens out of my glasses and I can't wear them anymore because it makes me sick at the stomach. So it looks like Marge is stuck with the driving, and I don't know who will take the boys hunting. That tree has just decided to grow right out of that crack in the rock there. It must be quite an old tree. Old juniper. Tiny Pike Creek flows and crashes its way down to the floor of the desert where it's immediately swallowed up by the desert. And Pike Creek has the Lahontan cutthroat in it, the old original Lahontan cutthroat when the Alvord Desert was a 700-foot deep lake. It had lots of them in it, and now this is about the only place where this original stock is still here, except in some of the other creeks out east there are still some. A water skipper walking on top of the water. The kids can play in the creek here where it's nice and cool. Great big dragonfly sitting on a willow here.
The sunflower is following the sun around with its stunningly beautiful blossoms, adding some color to the floor of the desert. We're going to drive out on the desert once again and see if we can find the lens for my glasses, but it looks like it's a total lost cause it would be like looking for a needle in a haystack. So we'll give up on that, go back and cook us something decent to eat. And the boys are going to cook and eat the cottontail rabbits they got. Joe is one of the chefs, and Dustin cooks each of them cook their own rabbit. They roll it in some of the stuff we use to roll the fish in and put it on the camp stove, and they said that was really, really good.
Most of our cooking is done in the hot springs. We just throw the things in the hot springs, leave them for a while, and when we need them, we go get them out.
Leave it as long as we want. The potatoes take about 4 hours. Then we fish them out, and they're done to perfection. I've got us each a potato out, and I'll take one of the cans of canned goods out, and we'll have that for our dinner. The boys are eating their rabbits that they've cooked, and They
to
say
go, huh?
they're
Yeah.
really, really good.
Marge is not feeling good, so we're boiling her some willow bark tea.
Eat what I want.
Now, we got her some willow bark cooking there. We'll boil it good.
This is just something else to go with our dinner.
Wasn't gonna be a meal.
If you want it, I'll give it to you. Which one?
How is your rabbit, Lucifer?
Here.
What does yours
Little
taste
tiny
like?
piece. Kind of like chicken. What?
Kind of like
Little tiny
chicken?
piece, I'll give you this.
Four-legged chicken?
Yep.
Looks like Marge's willow bark tea's done. Now we're going to pour it in a cup and see if she'll... Okay, now take it to her. How is it? Take a taste of it and see how it is.
Let's have me a taste. Hey, let's.
You feel better?
It's like having 20 choke cherries in your mouth. Let's have a little taste.
Pretty good, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, take her over the rest of it and see if she feels better.
Pretty good. Wow.
Well, you're supposed to drink it hot.
I heard you.
Drink it hot.
Just go eat your dinner.
Drink it hot, Marge. Drink it hot.
I haven't got through eating my dinner.
Well, drink your tea.
You can have some tea with your dinner.
Marge?
We're going to go down to the hot springs for a little bit now and see how the water is there. And after that, the boys want to go hunting again. So those rabbits were so good, they want to try to get a couple of them to take home and share with the rest of their family. A very large snake has shed his skin next to the hot springs. It looks like it may have been the Great Basin gopher snake. Another snake skin there. That must be a good snake area. Well, we're done with the hot springs, and it's time to take those boys hunting again. They're going to see if they can catch up with a rabbit. They did, and they have one already. And it didn't take long for Dustin's deadly aim to connect with another cottontail rabbit. They'll skin it and take it home to share with the rest of the family.
Hold him up. Let's look at him. It's a cottontail rabbit.
I don't think there's any rabbits over there. They're behind the bush? Yeah. There, that might. I just forgot what bush. I'm going right. Keep going forward. Now straight up.
Don't be shooting with Lucifer over there now.
I won't.
Just make sure you watch which bush he's behind.
Straight up. Should be that bush about 10 or 15 feet in front of you. That one? Yeah. One of them around there. Got him.
Looks like we have another rabbit to clean as soon as Dustin retrieves him from up on top of this little hill. That'll make some real fine eating. These cottontails are the very best, we think. We'll find a nice shady spot and clean these rabbits so everything will be done right out here in the field and we don't have to deal with them later on. Another group of vultures is circling our motion detector camera, but it doesn't look like they're going to come in. They just circle and circle and circle, getting lower and lower, till pretty soon they're only about 5 feet off the ground, but yet they don't seem to come in. They cruise this area every day. They usually fly up the road looking for road kills, but they see our bait here and they're circling lower and lower, but they just won't set down on it. And I don't know what the problem is. They must see something that doesn't look quite right to them. The first of the series of caves. These are water wash caves that were once inhabited by Stone Age man. The boys
will go in each of these caves to look for soot on the ceiling where Stone Age man has had their campfires. This looks like a really good cave to have lived in here. That's what they kind of like, is those undercut shelves. Then they're nice and warm, and they can weave some mats out of some cattails or something, or hang hides over the front of it when that cold, chilly wind is blowing. The boys go in, all of them right here in front of us, one at a time, and then it's time for us to start gathering up and getting ready to head home. The very next morning, since Marge is driving, she wants to start early so she won't have to drive after dark. So we're going to check the hot springs, and of course I have to go up and get my game camera off the hill where we've had it to see what kind of game we could capture on it. The hot springs are steaming really nice this morning, and it looks really inviting, but we have no time for hot springs now if we're heading home. I go up and check the camera. The first thing I see is a ground squirrel. Then an old raven is having his dinner there. And believe it or not, the thing I didn't expect to see there was the image of a vulture. He's having his dinner there and enjoying every minute of it as he looks around and continues on his feeding. There not only were these birds there, but someone's pet dog has sneaked up there and probably drove the vultures off and decided to have him a little dinner there too. So there he is, a nice dog, having his dinner.